Easy Patreon. So in this video, we're going to have a look at Midside EQ, and we're going to kind of have a look at what is Midside, how can you use it, and the benefits of using it. So what is Midside EQ? The difference between Midside EQ is that with normal EQing, you're controlling the frequencies of your stereo signal. So whenever you boost the signal in your low end or your top end, you're boosting those frequencies in a decibel sense. You're making it louder or quieter. The difference between Midside is that you're controlling your mid signal, which is almost like it's mono. It's basically the signal which is perfectly identical on both your left and right speaker, and your side signal, which is the difference. So a way that you can kind of manually work this out if you want to is by duplicating a channel and then phase inverting one of them, and then the kind of like little tinny, I say tinny, but those kind of like phasey kind of sounds, that would be your side signal. So why would we do this? This can help us kind of isolate and so why would we do this? This is a type of process which can kind of help you separate frequencies in a more spatial sense. So for an example, you're working on, you're mixing on a track and you've got a bass sound which has quite a lot of like mid to high sounds as well, but it's got quite a lot of sub. So all those mid to high sounds may have a bit of a wideness to it, which you kind of want to bring down more center of your speakers so that it's more consistent. But also you're noticing that your low end has quite a lot of width, which it really doesn't need. So you want to get rid of all of that width, all of that side signal in your low end, so that it can still be a nice clean sub and you don't have any phase issues later on with your mix. So I use Midside usually when I'm mixing and when I'm mastering, mainly when I mix down. So I would suggest that if you're going to use this technique, aim to use it while you're mixing down rather than mastering. This is where you can kind of control elements more precisely, and mastering stage, you would only kind of do this if there are errors within the master and you need to fix some of these phasing and some of this imaging issues, and you don't have access to the stems. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to kind of show you how I use it. It can be done easily in both Ableton and Logic. I'm going to show you this project that I'm working on at the moment, show you some of how to apply Midside to a track, and then we can take it from there. So in front of me, this is a project that I'm mixing down for a client. I'm going to kind of go across how I would use Midside in a project like this. And for this example, I'm going to use FabFilter's Q3, but I'll also show you how you can also use Logic's channel EQ to also do Midside. So I'll give you a quick play of the track, and then I'll kind of show you what I would use and where I would use it. Cool. So in this project, there were some elements where I did have phasing issues, and I say phasing, there were some phasing issues and there were some issues where I felt that like I was losing the track. So some of these tracks you can see, rather than using Midside, I duplicated the track and I hard panned left and right, and then I EQ'd them accordingly. So you can see that I've done it on these bits, and I've done it down here, and I've also done it on this track as well. the way it's bounced out is meant to be a bass, but there's also like melody elements in there as well. So I couldn't process it the way I wanted to. However, if I solo this group and we'll have a listen to this element here. So if I get my Q3 out and we'll have a little listen. So what automatically straight away what I would do or what I want to do to kind of tidy this up and make it feel a bit tighter and a bit neater, I want to get rid of, if I freeze this actually, so what I want to do, I want to get rid of any of the side signal down here in the low end, and I also might get rid as well some of the side signal just around the top here, just so that other elements like snares and hi-hats can cut through a little bit more. Plus it also means that if I listen to this track in mono, it's not going to feel that all of a sudden the track is just losing all of its lush width. The reason that I do this is just because with the type of music that we commonly make, a lot of it is sound system culture. It kind of gets played in clubs, and a lot of these clubs, all clubs I should say really, sound system setup is to be mono speakers. So when you're making a track and you're trying to add loads of width and you're adding loads of like stereo depth to it, a lot of it doesn't translate well in a club environment. So to kind of save your track and to make sure that if you play it in a club, it sounds exactly how you play it, how it sounds when you play it at home or when you play it in your car or when you listen to it on headphones, is why I tend to kind of chip away at some of the side signal or duplicate areas just so that like, yeah, it translates the same. So to do that, unfreeze this, what I would do, I would create a node. I'm going to change it to low cut, and then if I right click on it, go to stereo placement and then go to side, it changes to like, yeah, blue, and you got a little S that kind of lets me know that it's only affecting side signal. This is now going to help me just remove away any side signal in the low end. So if I solo it, you can kind of hear that. Maybe you might need headphones on, but you can kind of hear that, like, yeah, all of that width in the low end, we don't need that. All that's going to do is just cause phasing issues later on down the line, and it's just going to muddy up your low mids and your sub. And then what I could also do, I might just create another like bell EQ. I'm just going to change the cut on it just so I could make it a little bit wider and steeper. I'm just going to bring it down around 3 dB. And if I bypass this, I gave it a little boost. I probably, I normally wouldn't, but I just did. In fact, I'm going to get rid of that. I was getting a little bit carried away. I'd rather take away than add. Just boost this up just a touch there. Cool. So if I bring up this plugin, Dualism, so this is what I use to kind of monitor my mix downs and just kind of just keep on track on what I'm doing and yeah, how it's going. If I give this a little play, So what it's showing me down here, this is my mid signal, and then the blue is my side signal. And if I bypass the EQ, you might notice it's kind of boosted a little touch. Turn it back on, it's dipped a little bit. So we can see that I'm kind of just shaving away the side signal. And if I solo my mid, you can hear that, like, as soon as I solo the mid, it kind of sucks in a little bit, but it doesn't feel that I'm losing anything. It doesn't sound like all of a sudden you can't hear the pads, or those plucks are totally non-existent. And that's how I kind of want to keep it. I want it so that, like, this is almost an example on how it would sound in the club. And then this is like, yeah, your home stereo system. And yeah, I want to make sure that when you play it in a club, you're not missing anything. Everything still sounds good and in context. So let's have a listen with everything else. If I bypass this, I might even just give this a little boost. So yeah, let's have a quick little listen to this bypass on and off. Not sure if you can hear the difference. So I believe that, like, with this EQ one now, it just feels like a little bit tighter. When the EQ's off, it does sound a bit wider, but it also feels a little bit muddy, and it just feels that, like, it doesn't feel glued in that kind of sense. It just feels like, yeah, it's just, yeah, all over the place. In comparison to with this on now, it just feels like a little bit tighter. Those frequency elements have a bit more of their own space, and also the low end just feels a little bit more isolated in comparison. Cool. So if you don't have the Q3, you can also do this with Logic's built-in channel EQ. And to do that, you just bring it up, and then when it says processing, you change that to mid or side only. So I might go to side only, and then I could just do the exact same processing, just give this a little tweak, and that is pretty much what I just had in the Q3. And there you go. That's midside processing. So that is using it to kind of just like create a little bit of separation in the frequencies, adding a little bit more space between elements. You can also use this to add width and to kind of just add that sparkle or air to a track. So let's have a listen. So maybe, what did I do here? Oh, I know what I did. So similar thing. So what I found, if I mute those, this is pretty quiet. So when I was processing this, I noticed that I mean, there's a couple ways you can kind of go about some elements. I just found it easier just for me to kind of know what I've been doing, just to duplicate it, hard pan, and then process each channel as each stereo bit. But if you don't want to kind of go down that route and you want to use a mid-side, which is pointless when it's mono, not stereo, okay. So that's why I did what I kind of did. I duplicated it into 3 tracks and made it mono, because I noticed when I listen to it, it's very wide, and then as soon as I just want to bring this up. As soon as I drop it down to mono, just feels really thin, just non-existent. Just bring that back. It's just like so much has gone. So same sort of thing. But instead, with this node, I'm going to change this to mid. Dualism. Still just losing a lot of the width. Put this side. Cool. So that sounds a little bit better. I boosted the mids just so that when it is a mono, it doesn't just disappear like how it did before. It was quite a big boost, like 10 dB. But if you have a listen to that now. Doesn't sound too bad. Obviously, we lost quite a lot of like the width due to the nature of the patch. However, we can still hear it in comparison to where it just totally dipped in decibels and it was just like non-existent. So let me just get this off. Just mono that again. And to be fair, it actually did kind of sound a bit better than how I have set it up. So I'm probably just going to change that now in the mix to kind of match what we just quickly just knocked out with the mid-side. Okay, so in front of me, I just thought, let me just quickly show you how I'll do this on Ableton. I brought over the track. So this is the reference version. This is not the mixed version. So it might sound, well, not via mic, it will sound very different to what you heard on Logic. And yeah, I just thought, let me just bring in the EQ8 and just kind of show you how you can still do Midside with a stock plugin in Ableton. So yeah, we've got the master, or the reference, I should say. You guys roughly already know how it kind of sounds. And yeah, in the kind of master sense, pretty similar to what I did on Logic. It's more of a case of trying to, deal with certain frequencies being in the right position of your speaker, so to say. So with your EQ8, same sort of thing. You go to your modes here, and when it says stereo, you got left and right if you want to EQ just the left signal or the right signal, and then you got Midside. So I can go down to Midside, and then you can edit M for mid or S for side, and there you go. So what I would do, pretty similar to how it was before, I'm going to change that, make that all sides. Just giving it a boost in the top there, it's just giving that a little sparkle. Do you know what? I'm gonna also just add always checking mono. And if I go switch it to mid modes, this is going to help like the kick kind of punch through a bit more. You can hear it in the toms as well. I might as well just do cool. So just with like, I mean, this is very rough. It's a very brutal example. So it's more of a case of just kind of just showing you guys how this works. But we can definitely hear a difference. So if I bypass the EQ, there's some, just loop up the area. You can definitely hear it more where like those pads kind of come in. That's how it was before. We'll put the EQ back on. Like the bass kind of just like has its own space again. The toms is kind of kicking through. That's how it sounded before. So it sounded pretty flat. Even though it was really wide, it just sounds flat. And now it feels like there's a separation between the two now. And now if I bring it down to mono, it doesn't feel like I'm losing too much. In comparison to if I have the EQ off and I put it on mono, it's like, where's everything gone? Notice it more like in that pad section. So So that's roughly, I mean, like if you're mastering if you're mastering a track which ain't yours and you don't have access to the stems, this is where Midside will come useful, where you're trying to like just push through, highlight and separate some elements within the track, where with in comparison to just using a normal EQ where you're boosting everything within that frequency region. So yeah, that's how I would use Midside in a mastering sense, and that's how you can use it with the Ableton EQ. So just to round off, as you can kind of see, that I used Midside on a mixdown stage just to help add some separation between some of the frequencies between instruments and elements. I used it just to kind of get rid of all of that side information in the low end, just so that there wouldn't be any clashing or any kind of phase issues where elements that don't need sub frequencies are kind of playing. And you know, with your subs, you want to keep it mono and you want to have it just coming driving down the center of your speaker, especially when you're making music with the intention of it being played in sound system culture. Alternatively, on Ableton, I kind of used it as if I was doing a mastering, just roughly, very brutal, but you know, we was able to highlight elements and separate the lows from the high end, you know, being able to kind of make the kick and all the percussion sounds kind of that cut through a bit more, plus adding a little bit of sparkle in the top end. So this is something I would use sparingly and only on elements that really need it. Otherwise, you know, if you overuse it, you can end up creating phase issues. So just be aware of that. Otherwise, you know, go ahead. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. And also, if you check out the folder in this month's one, there's 2 templates, mixdown templates, kind of just setting you guys up on like how I set up my mixdowns, and there's some information written down in a text document for you guys, just so you can kind of understand what plugins I've used, the order they're in, and why I've used those plugins, and the intention behind my mixdown process. So hopefully all of that's useful to you guys, and I'll see you guys next month. Till then.